Meet the family failure, my sister announced, dragging me beneath the wedding spotlight as nearly 200 guests raised their phones. She mocked my divorce, my empty house, and the career she claimed mattered more than our father. Then the groom's mother stood up, stared at me, and whispered, "She saved my life." Why had my sister hidden who I really was? Since everyone's here, let's meet the family failure. The microphone squealed, making several guests flinch. Kim's fingers tightened around my wrist as she pulled me from the shadows near the ballroom doors and into the heat of the stage lights. I could have stopped her. I could have pulled free. Instead, I looked around. Phones were rising above the tables. The photographer turned his camera toward us. 2 bridesmaids covered their mouths, already laughing. Mark, my new brother-in-law, did not laugh. He watched his wife with a puzzled crease between his eyebrows. At the family table, my father sat still. If I fought Kim in front of those cameras, she would say I had come to ruin her wedding, so I let her lead me to the center of the stage. Kim smiled into the microphone. She told the room that I was her older sister, though she sounded embarrassed to admit it. Then she listed the reasons she believed I had failed. I was divorced. I had no children. I cared more about my career than my family. While she had stayed home to help our father recover, I had kept working in Charlotte. According to Kim, I had shown up for a free dinner and some attention. Laughter moved through the front tables. I stood with my hands relaxed at my sides. In my family, success had never earned me respect. It had only convinced them that I could endure more, give more, and pay more without complaint. Then a chair scraped across the floor. Patricia Callahan, Mark's mother, rose from the head table. She stared at me, then turned to her son. "Mark, that's Dr. Monroe. She operated on me." The laughter stopped. Patricia stepped forward. "She's the reason I'm standing here tonight." Mark looked at his mother, then at me, and finally at Kim. The confusion on his face deepened. I kept my voice quiet. "Mrs. Callahan, I'm glad to see you doing well." Kim's smile tightened. She told the room that being a talented doctor did not make me a good daughter. She said I had never done anything for our family. I looked at her. "Are you sure you want to keep doing this?" She mistook my calm for fear. Kim lifted the microphone again and said I cared more about looking important than helping anyone at home. I opened my dark blue clutch. My fingers touched the cream-colored envelope inside, but I did not remove it. "Then where is the $78,000 I sent for Dad's recovery?" Kim stopped breathing. My mother stood so quickly that her chair tipped backward. My father lowered his eyes. I had not come to destroy my sister's wedding. I had come with one envelope and a plan to handle everything quietly. But to understand why $78,000 could silence an entire ballroom, I have to take you back to the day my father called me from the hospital. 5 months before the wedding, I stepped out of a long surgery and found 4 missed calls from my mother. When I called back, she told me Dad had suffered a mild stroke. He was stable, but his left leg was weak, and the stairs in their house had become dangerous. The upstairs bedroom was no longer practical. Neither was the narrow bathroom with its old porcelain tub. I suggested hiring a home safety specialist to inspect the house. Mom refused before I finished. She said Kim had quit her job and was handling everything. 2 days later, Kim emailed me a spreadsheet. It was neat, color-coded, and painfully detailed. $24,500 for a bathroom deposit. More for grab bars, a wheelchair ramp, an adjustable bed, physical therapy, in-home care, and a 6-month reserve. The total was $78,000. At the bottom, Kim had written, "Every dollar will be used for Mom and Dad." I read that sentence 3 times. It sounded like a promise. Later, it would become the clearest evidence I had. Money had always moved through my family in one direction. When Kim lost her apartment after quitting another job, I paid 3 months of rent. When my parents fell behind on property taxes, I covered the balance. After my divorce, Mom did not ask whether I was lonely. She asked whether the settlement would affect how much I could still contribute. In my family, the person who caused the problem was comforted. The person who solved it was asked when the money would arrive. Still, I did not transfer the funds directly to Kim. I opened an account called Harper Family Care and funded it with my savings. Kim could pay approved vendors, but she could not move money into her personal account. She had to provide invoices, send weekly updates, and notify me before any large payment. Every major transaction would trigger an alert. Mom called that evening and accused me of treating my sister like a criminal. Accountability isn't an accusation, Mom. She said love should not require receipts. Then Kim sent me a picture of Dad sitting in his worn recliner. His shoulders were slumped, and his left foot rested on a pillow. She wrote that she had given up her job to care for him. The guilt worked exactly as intended. I lived more than 200 miles away. I was being considered for a leadership position at the hospital. Kim was there, and I was not. So I activated her payment authority. 1 week later, my phone lit up. $24,500 had been sent to Harbor Home Recovery, LLC as a bathroom renovation deposit. Kim called soon afterward, cheerful and relieved. The crew, she promised, would begin on Monday. 3 weeks passed after Kim promised the crew would start on Monday. No one called about a delay, no invoice arrived, no progress photos appeared. Then Dad called between 2 patient consultations. His voice sounded quiet and tired. "Honey, do you know when those men are coming to put in the rails?" I closed my office door. Dad was not angry. He was not suspicious. He still believed the work was happening. He thought the delay was ordinary, the kind caused by back-ordered tile or a busy contractor. I kept my voice calm and asked whether anyone had measured the bathroom. No. Had anyone left a business card? No. Had the adjustable bed arrived, or had the home care agency called? Again, no. Kim had only told him the materials were delayed. After we hung up, I called the new Hanover County permitting office. The clerk searched my parents' address twice. There was no plumbing application, no bathroom renovation permit, and no inspection scheduled. I wrote down her name, the time, and the reference number. Next, I called the home care company, listed on Kim's invoice. I said I needed to confirm my father's intake information. The representative returned from hold, sounding confused. There was no patient named George Harper in their system. The invoice number did not match their records, no contract had been signed, and no caregiver had been assigned. I asked for confirmation in writing. Then I opened Kim's spreadsheet again. Every number looked polished. Every category was neat. Nothing appeared careless. That was what frightened me. In an operating room, the most dangerous moment is not always when an alarm sounds. Sometimes it is when the numbers look normal, but they do not match the patient lying in front of you. Dad was the patient in front of me. His house had not changed. The promised services did not exist. Yet the money had already left the account. Families do not always steal by breaking into a bank account. Sometimes they use guilt, illness, and the promise that family should trust family. They persuade you to open the door yourself. I created an encrypted folder on my laptop and named it Dad's Recovery Audit. Inside, I saved the bank statements, Kim's emails, her spreadsheet, the county confirmation, the home care letter, and every message about the construction delay. I told neither Kim nor Mom. Before I tell you what I found in that bathroom, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I always love seeing how far these stories travel, and how many of us have learned not to ignore that quiet feeling that something isn't right. Before sunrise that Saturday, I got into my car and drove toward Wilmington. I reached Wilmington shortly after sunrise. My parents' house looked as it always had. There was no contractor's truck in the driveway, no dumpster sat near the curb, no lumber, no boxes of tile, no muddy footprints crossed the porch. The grass beside the house was untouched. Kim had told me demolition had already begun. Nothing had begun. I let myself inside and went straight to the downstairs bathroom. The old porcelain tub was still there, the faded floral wallpaper still curled at the corners. There were no grab bars, no drill marks, and no sign that anyone had measured the walls. A thin rubber mat lay on the floor, the kind sold for a few dollars at a drugstore. Dad tried to stand when he heard me. I watched him make his way toward the bathroom. His right hand reached for the porcelain sink, His fingers tightened around the edge until his knuckles turned white. His left leg trembled beneath him. "I'm getting better," he said. "I just need something solid to hold on to." That sentence stayed with me. The money was mine, but the safety it was supposed to buy had belonged to him. Mom appeared in the doorway and asked why I had come without calling. I told her I wanted to check the renovation and asked when the contractor planned to return. Her face hardened. She said I did not live there, so I had no right to inspect their home. She accused me of treating the family like a medical case. Kim, she reminded me, had given up her job while I stayed in Charlotte asking questions from a distance. Then she said I had more money than I could ever need. I did not accuse her of anything. "What is the foreman's name?" Mom looked away. Dad did too. His silence told me he knew something was wrong, but he was not ready to say it. I did not press him. I helped him back into his chair, checked his medication bottles, and wrote down the dates of his physical therapy appointments. In my work, a person can die when a doctor ignores something that does not fit, because asking another question feels uncomfortable. I had never accepted that risk with a patient. I did not understand why I had accepted it with family. On the drive back to Charlotte, I stopped at a highway rest area and opened the state business registry on my phone. Harbor Home Recovery had no contractor's license. Its address belonged to a rented mailbox. It listed no employees. The company had been formed 2 days after Dad left the hospital. The registered agent's email included an old nickname Kim had used in college. I read the filing date 3 times. Kim had not stumbled into an opportunity. My sister had built the trap before she asked me for a single dollar. The next morning, I sat across from Susan Keller with every document between us. She reviewed the bank statements, Kim's email, the business filing, the county confirmation, and the letter from the home care company. Susan turned each page, made notes, and asked me to explain the timeline again. When I finished, she folded her hands. "If you confront her now, she'll delete what she can and call the rest a family misunderstanding." The evidence was strong enough to protect the money that remained. It was not yet complete enough to prove every step had been planned. So I followed her advice. That afternoon, I spoke with the bank's security department. Kim's access was removed. Her card was disabled. No new payee could be added without my approval. Alerts were turned on for failed transfers and login attempts. The old records stayed untouched. Kim would not receive a warning. I did not close the account because Dad still needed help. Instead, I changed how that help reached him. His blood pressure medication was paid directly to the pharmacy. His physical therapy was billed to me. I covered part of the mortgage, scheduled a home safety evaluation, and hired a care aide. A boundary is not the same as abandonment. It means making sure help reaches the person who needs it, instead of passing through the hands of someone using it. 2 days later, Dad called while Mom was at the grocery store. His voice was barely above a whisper. He asked whether I had agreed to let Kim use some of the recovery money for the wedding venue deposit. I told him no. After a pause, he said Mom had told him not to ask about the bathroom anymore. She said I could earn the money back in a few months. Kim needed a good start to her marriage, and after the wedding, everyone would sort things out. When the call ended, I sat alone in my kitchen. Some people do not ask permission to take from the person who earns more. They decide that earning more has already taken away that person's right to refuse. That evening, 2 messages arrived from Mom. "Do not bring this up before the wedding." Then another. "You make that much in a few months. Let your sister have one perfect day." I took screenshots, exported the message history, and sent everything to Susan. I wanted to call Kim and demand an answer, but anger would give her what she needed. She could cry, deny, and tell everyone I was punishing her for getting married. So I stayed quiet. Susan sent preservation notices to the bank and Harbor Home Recovery, requiring them to keep relevant records. One payment was still waiting inside the account. It had already been scheduled. I just did not know where it was going. 2 days before the wedding, Susan called with the first clear map of where the money had gone. Harbor Home Recovery had paid the deposit at Riverbend Country Club. It had also covered part of Kim's wedding dress, the florist, a luxury car service, and a reservation at a coastal resort. Susan still needed formal records from each vendor, but the pattern was clear. One payment remained scheduled for the wedding night. $11,600. The recipient appeared under a travel company's name, though the description suggested it was the final honeymoon balance. I left the payment visible, but the bank was instructed to block it if anyone tried to complete the transfer. Susan wanted to send the repayment demand that morning. I asked her to wait until after the cake was cut. I did not want Mark to believe I was a bitter sister trying to ruin a marriage. I did not want Dad trapped in a public scene. I wanted to finish one last duty as Kim's sister, wish her well, and leave. I prepared a thin cream-colored envelope. Inside were Kim's written promise, a summary of the money trail, confirmation that no permit existed, the notice removing Kim's access, and Susan's business card. I planned to hand it to Mom in the parking lot quietly. Before I left the hotel, Mom called. She did not ask whether I had arrived safely. "Do not make tonight about you. I'm going to stand in the back, wish Kim well, and leave." That was the truth. I reached Riverbend after the ceremony. I parked near the exit, skipped the guest book, and did not look for a seat. I took sparkling water and stayed near the ballroom doors. Framed family photographs stood throughout the room. In every picture, I had been cropped out, hidden behind flowers, or reduced to part of a shoulder. Kim had erased me before she tried to explain me. I noticed Patricia at the head table, but the room was dim. I did not approach her. She had once been my patient, and I would not turn that history into a social introduction. Then the photographer stepped backward to capture the bridesmaids. The flash lit my face. One woman looked over and leaned toward Kim. Kim's smile changed. She glanced at Mark, then at Patricia. Finally, she looked at the dark blue clutch in my hand. She did not ask me to leave. People who control a story are rarely most afraid of the truth. They fear losing the chance to tell their version first. Kim picked up the microphone and walked toward me. Her fingers closed around my wrist. "Since you came all this way, let's make sure everyone meets you." Until then, I had intended to keep everything inside the envelope. But as she pulled me toward the stage, I understood. She wanted my silence to sound like a confession. The ballroom went silent. Kim looked at the cream-colored envelope in my hand, then at Mark. For the first time that night, she understood I had not come empty-handed. She changed her story immediately. She promised to help with the wedding, Kim said. Now she's pretending it was never a gift. I removed the email she had sent months earlier. One sentence sat at the bottom. "Every dollar will be used for Mom and Dad." I walked to the head table and placed it in Mark's hands, along with the bank summary, the county confirmation showing no permit had been filed, and the letter stating no home care service had been arranged. I did not pay for this wedding. I paid so Dad could walk safely through his own house. Mark read each page slowly. Mom rushed forward and grabbed the microphone. "Kim didn't steal anything. She only used part of what Rachel had already agreed to give this family." "Agreed to give for what?" Mom's voice rose. "You make that much in a few months. Your sister was starting a marriage. Your father could wait until after the wedding." No one moved. Even the photographer lowered his camera. Dad pushed himself upright, one hand gripping the table. His voice was weak, but the microphone carried it. I asked when the rails were coming. They told me not to bother anyone before the wedding. He admitted he had nearly fallen in the bathroom. He had waited on the floor until Mom heard him and came to help. I had believed the worst thing they stole was my money. But as Dad spoke, I understood they had taken something money could not restore. They had taken safety from a man learning to walk again. Kim insisted Dad was confused. Then my phone vibrated. Scheduled transfer blocked, $11,600. Callahan Bay Resort. The payment had been arranged days earlier. The reservation code matched the honeymoon booking. It was scheduled to clear after the speeches. I handed the phone to Mark. Kim reached for it, but he stepped back. After everything I gave up for this family, I deserved something for myself. The denial was gone. Mark looked at her. Did you schedule this payment from the account meant for your father? Kim turned toward me instead. She said I had always hated her because she had a husband while I only had a career. Mark set the phone on the table. This is not about your sister's marriage. It's about what you did. Patricia moved beside her son. Disappointment had replaced the warmth in her face. Kim reached for the microphone again. She was not finished trying to make me the villain. Kim reached for the microphone before Mark could move it away. She told the room that I had never accepted her marriage. She said the money was a private family misunderstanding, twisted by a woman who used her career and her bank account to control everyone around her. Then she pointed at the papers in Mark's hands and suggested they could have been altered. I did not answer every accusation. The original records are with my attorney. Mark can review them with counsel. Kim turned to her husband and demanded that he defend her. Instead, he asked why she had never told him I was a surgeon. He asked why she had claimed I had never helped our parents. Finally, he asked why money from Dad's recovery account had been scheduled for a honeymoon resort. Kim spoke around each question without answering one. Mark took the microphone from her hand and set it on the table. I need to understand who I just married. He did not shout. He did not throw his ring. He simply asked Patricia to come with him. The two of them walked toward the ballroom doors while guests moved aside. Kim called after him, but he never turned around. Mom grabbed my arm. She said I had destroyed the most important day of my sister's life. She warned me that relatives, neighbors, and people from church would talk about this for years. Kim used Dad's recovery money. I did not make her do that. Mom kept talking about shame. She never once asked whether Dad had been hurt when he fell. From the family table, Dad called my name. Rachel, please take me home. I looked at his tired face and knew I could not return him to the same house, not that night. Before the wedding, I had arranged a temporary option in case the situation became unsafe. I called the rehabilitation center near the river. They had a room ready and a nurse available to help him through the night. As I gathered his coat, the venue manager approached quietly. Part of the reception balance was still unpaid. Kim looked at Mom. Mom looked at me. For years, that look had been enough. I would reach for my wallet, solve the problem, and tell myself I was preserving peace. Not this time. You'll need to discuss that with the person who signed the contract. I helped Dad into my rental car. As we pulled away, I saw Kim beneath the entrance awning. Her expensive white dress spread around her feet, and her phone was pressed to her ear. She was not calling to ask if Dad was safe. She was already deciding how to tell the story by morning. By sunrise, Kim had already posted her version of the wedding on Facebook. She wrote that I had always looked down on her. She claimed I had promised to help with the wedding, then changed my mind because I could not stand seeing her happy. According to Kim, I had used my career, my money, and a stack of altered documents to humiliate her in front of everyone she loved. Mom began making calls before breakfast. She told older relatives, neighbors, and women from church that the $78,000 had been a family gift. She said private matters should never have been dragged into public, as though the public part had begun with my question instead of Kim's microphone. A colleague at the hospital sent me a screenshot and urged me to post the email, the bank record, and the county letter. I refused. Dad's medical information did not belong on social media. Arguing online could confuse the record. More importantly, Kim wanted an angry response. She needed me to look unstable so people would stop asking whether the evidence was real. Justice is not decided by likes. I saved every post, comment, and message. Then I sent the files to Susan. That afternoon, she issued formal preservation notices to the bank, the country club, the bridal shop, the florist, the car service, and the honeymoon resort. The notices did not prove Kim was guilty. They simply required those businesses to keep contracts, invoices, emails, payment records, and document histories that might later matter. Susan also brought in Maria Santos, a forensic accountant. Maria followed the money from the Harper Family Care account into Harbor Home Recovery. From there, it had been divided into smaller payments. Each one matched a wedding deadline, the venue, the dress, the flowers, the car. The blocked $11,600 transfer was the final balance on the honeymoon package. Then Maria examined the digital invoices Kim had sent me. Every file carries a quiet history. It can show when it was created, which device touched it, and what software changed it. Those invoices had been created on the same computer used to send Kim's electronic wedding invitations. The company logos had been copied from legitimate businesses. Contractor signatures were only pictures placed onto the page. Several invoice numbers did not exist in the real company's systems. One email hurt more than the rest. Mom had written to Kim, "Make the paperwork look complete before Rachel asks again." People often say the truth always wins. It does not. The truth only has a chance when someone protects it from being deleted, edited, or buried beneath a story that is easier to believe. Susan closed the file in front of her. "Do you want me to demand full repayment and refer this for investigation?" I looked at the folder. I did not answer yet. Before I answered Susan, I went to see Dad at the rehabilitation center. He was in the therapy room, moving slowly behind a walker. A metal rail had been installed along the wall at the right height, and he reached for it without thinking, and the sight took me back to his hand gripping that old porcelain sink. When we sat down, Dad told me the truth. He had known no contractor ever came. Mom had told him not to upset Kim before the wedding. She said the delays were temporary and warned him that asking too many questions would only create more trouble. Dad admitted he was afraid. He depended on Mom for meals, transportation, and help getting dressed. He thought that if he challenged her, she might leave him alone. He also believed I was strong enough to absorb whatever happened. I listened without interrupting. Then I said, "I can understand why you were afraid, but fear does not make the silence harmless." Dad lowered his eyes. I was not trying to shame him. He was already living with the cost of his choices. But compassion could not mean pretending those choices had hurt no one. He agreed to give a written statement. He confirmed that no work had been done, no caregiver had been hired, and he had never approved using the recovery fund for a wedding. He also stated that Mom and Kim had asked him not to tell me the truth. That statement changed the shape of the case. This was no longer a fight between two sisters. Dad was the person the money had been meant to protect, and he had been placed at risk while others used his condition as a cover. Later that afternoon, a cousin called on Kim's behalf. Kim was willing to apologize in private. She would remove the Facebook post and repay part of the money over time. In return, I had to stop the legal process and tell everyone the whole thing had been a family misunderstanding. I declined. An apology tied to silence is not remorse. It is a transaction. People often ask for reconciliation only after they lose control. They do not want to repair the harm. They want to escape the consequence. I called Susan. Move forward with full restitution. Preserve everything. Send the referral. If I called this a misunderstanding, I would teach Kim that the only mistake she made was getting caught. I would also teach Dad that his safety could still be traded for a false peace. By the end of the day, the legal notices had been sent. Kim and Mom now knew I was not stepping back. The legal process moved slowly. It gave every lie time to meet a document. During her sworn deposition, Mom first described the $78,000 as a general family fund. She said there had never been a strict agreement about how it should be used. Susan placed Kim's email in front of her. Every dollar will be used for Mom and Dad. Then came Mom's messages telling me not to ask questions before the wedding, followed by the email instructing Kim to make the paperwork look complete. The county records showed no construction. The home care company showed no patient. The bank records showed where the money went. Eventually, Mom admitted she knew part of the fund had been used for the wedding. Mark did not rely on my word alone. His attorney requested the venue contract, the bridal shop records, the honeymoon payments, and the documents Kim had given him before the ceremony. Those records showed that Kim had told him, "I volunteered to finance the wedding," and that Dad's care had already been handled. Once Mark saw the pattern, he began ending the marriage. Kim's attorney also understood what the evidence meant. The money trail led from the care account to the shell company, then to the wedding vendors. The invoices were false. Care account's Harbor Home Recovery had been created before Kim asked me for money. The honeymoon payment had been scheduled in advance. Dad was not a bystander, he was the person placed at risk. Kim eventually accepted a plea agreement. She was ordered to repay the full $78,000 plus interest and cover part of the legal expenses. She sold her luxury car and expensive belongings. The sentence included 4 months in a county facility, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. She was also barred from managing money for any family member. Mom faced civil consequences for helping conceal the fraud. Without the money she expected from me, my parents sold the 2-story house and moved into a smaller place that was safer for Dad. I continued paying his pharmacy and care providers directly. I did not restore access. One afternoon, a letter arrived from Kim. She wrote that I had destroyed her life. I stopped reading and sent it to Susan for the file. Kim still believed the consequences began when I spoke at the wedding. They had begun earlier, when she created a false company and decided Dad's recovery mattered less than a perfect celebration. Justice did not make me happy. It simply created an empty space where manipulation had once lived. For the first time, I was ready to decide what belonged there instead. The first box I opened in my new house held books. Not legal files. Not bank statements. Not bills someone expected me to pay. The walls were painted a color I chose. No photographs had been cropped to remove me. No sealed envelopes waited on the counter. No one else had a key. 3 colleagues came over with soup and a drill. They helped me build 2 bookshelves and stayed afterward. None of them needed money from me to stay. Later, I accepted the position of chief of surgery. The title mattered, but not because it proved Kim wrong. I had value before the promotion, before Patricia recognized me, and before anyone in that ballroom stopped laughing. It meant I had stepped into the life I built without asking permission. I visited Dad at his apartment after therapy. The space was safer. Rails lined the bathroom walls, and there were no stairs between his bedroom and kitchen. He apologized for letting Mom make every decision. He admitted he had stayed silent when I was treated unfairly, because he believed I was strong enough to survive it. I will make sure you are safe, Dad, but I cannot pretend the trust was never broken. He nodded. I paid his pharmacy and care providers directly. I attended medical meetings when needed. I did not hand over cash, account access, or the old kind of trust. That was not cruelty. It was clarity. Mom called later. She said family forgives. That was what families did. I looked through the kitchen window at the garden. Forgiveness is a choice. Access is a privilege. You lost that privilege. I did not raise my voice or explain further. For most of my life, I believed silence made me the most mature person in the room. But silence, held too long, gave others space to turn their version of me into the only version anyone heard. I did not win because I shouted louder than Kim. I won because I kept the evidence. I protected Dad. I stopped financing the lie. Real family is not defined by a shared last name. It is defined by people who do not ask you to become smaller, open your wallet, or accept humiliation just to belong. Silence is not weakness when it helps you observe, prepare, and act with purpose. But when silence allows harm to continue, it is no longer patience. It is self-abandonment. My phone lit up again with Mom's name. I turned it face down and stepped into the garden, where young plants had begun to take root. For the first time, the quiet around me did not feel like abandonment. It felt like freedom. On a scale from 1 to 10, how satisfied were you with the way I handled Kim and my mother? Do you think I should have given them another chance? Or was I right to protect the life I had finally reclaimed?